My Doctor Said What is a program for health information. Be careful that if you want treatment and diagnosis of disease, you need to go to your local healthcare provider.
Hi, this is Dr. Franks in the new studio. Dr. Frank with What Did My Doctor Said? No, my doctor said what? Oh, we're going to have some fun facts today, and we're going to talk about blue poop and school shootings. Difference there from a medical perspective. Say what? Interesting things. But before we get to that, let me tell you all those of my generation that didn't have sunscreen. Wear your sunscreen. Make sure you put it on and that you reapply it according to directions. Otherwise, you're going to have spots all over where the sun was, like all us old guys. And it's not age, it's sun. And those can turn into skin cancer from little keratosis and other things. So just prevent it. Your skin will look better, have less wrinkles, not have the spots all over your hands and arms and face. So put your sunscreen on. If you want a tan, spray it on. Not from a booth, but some other way. Just make sure you're not being exposed to UV light. And if you're swimming, you might consider something like what I've got on, the rash guard. And the reason I wore that today is I wear them all the time. If you're fishing, golfing, doing whatever, they're wonderful. You can even get the head mask and the gloves, and they're made out of high performance fabrics that will cause you to not be exposed to the UV rays without having to have all the gooky sunscreen all over you. So remember that. Also, sunglasses protect your eyes. You don't want cataracts when you're in your 50s. You want to go as long as you can. So you do that by wearing your sunglasses when you're out in the sun. And then other fun facts. Temporary weight loss, really bad. People that yo-yo up and down and get on fad diets. What happens is you're born with a certain number of fat cells. And as you gain weight and grow, you get more, they expand. And then, according to your genetics and a lot of other things, they shake different ways, but that number will not increase until you get to a certain weight. And then they have to replicate from stem cells, and you get more fat cells. The sad thing is when you lose weight, you don't lose the fat cells. The fat cells shrink. So the more you get, the more you have there latent. That makes it so much easier for you to gain weight. The other thing is if you crash diet, lose a pound a day or something like that, then you're going to end up losing muscle mass. I don't care how much you exercise, so you have to be careful. You want to lose weight in a controlled and proper way. You want to keep it down to about a half pound, 3/4 pound a day at most. If you're restricting calories below about 12 or 1,300 a day, you've really got to talk to your physician or your dietitian and find out with your metabolic rate what's going on. So I would say with that, you want to lose weight by exercising more. And the sad news is that true long-term weight loss is a lifestyle change. I know that sounds terrible. It's not fatty. It's not what you're hoping for. You could get weight loss surgery at a certain point, but usually you really lose a lot of muscle and organ weight, and it becomes really tough. And for those that are hundreds and hundreds of pounds overweight, talk to your physician or your healthcare provider and see what the options are. There's some new drugs. Remember, every drug you take has a side effect, so you have to discuss with your provider the benefit versus the risk. So for these new weight loss drugs, they have some great benefits. And like all drugs, they have some risks. So you'll have to make that decision with your provider what you want to do. But I can assure you this, if you restrict your calories and you increase your exercise, whether it's aerobic or ideally aerobic and resistance training, you will lose weight. Stay at it and you will lose weight. That's very, very important. It's a lifestyle change, and it's amazing. The things that you like and you think you can't live without that are high fat, high salt, high sugar, after a while, you're going to find those simple carbohydrates and the things you crave, you will not crave them. It's a matter of time that it takes to do that. So remember that. Keep healthy. That's one of the best things you can do for yourself. Quit smoking. Quit vaping. Don't drink more than one drink a day. Don't drink at all if you can. End up with taking a one-a-day vitamin in addition to a well-rounded plant-based diet with fruits and vegetables in high concentrations. Stay plenty hydrated and eat lean meats like grilled chicken and seafood, fish, etc. And red meat a couple times a week is fine. Lean red meat, not a fatty burger. So if you do all those things, you will lose weight. If you don't believe me, watch something like Schindler's List. Everybody in the concentration camp was thin. Didn't matter how big their bones were, if they were ectomorph or an endomorph or mesomorph. It's just simple, and we've tried to complicate this to the point where there are all these other factors and cortisols and all these things. And a lot of that is, it has some basis in science, but it doesn't matter. If you sustain less calories and increase your activity, you will lose weight, you will gain muscle mass, you won't lose organ weight, and you will end up being much healthier. Your metabolism will get better, and you'll be able to eat more, enjoy more. And whatever you do, if you have high blood pressure, lose the weight and stay away from salt. Salt's in everything. Don't add it to anything. I know people hate to hear that, but you've got to give up salt. Salt substitutes are fine if you want the same taste, but you got to get away from that sodium. Sodium kills more people than probably fat. I mean, it's really bad, and it makes you retain water and does all kind of things that you don't want it to do to your system. Do not add sodium. We live in a sodium-rich culture here in the United States. Get rid of the sodium. Now, let me tell you something. I always talk about exercise, and I talk about restricting your calories to a reasonable amount and eating healthy. But one of the most important things in building muscle, building your metabolism, and losing weight is sleep. No one wants to talk about the third leg of that stool. You've got to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, restful sleep. It's hard to catch up on sleep, and it's nice if you want to take a nap, but that you still can't catch up on sleep, so you've got to try to get it every night unless you're sick or something happens. And you want to turn everything off, all the extra stimulation, relax, meditate, pray, whatever makes you relax, breathe slowly and deeply, and get in a state of mind where the room is dark, and go to sleep on a comfortable pillow and a comfortable bed. And that's when your body rejuvenates and replenishes itself, where cells are built, where damage is repaired. It's really important that you do that. And here's a tip: if you've got sleep apnea, how do you know if you've got sleep apnea? Well, you can go to a sleep lab. But if your partner or someone sleeping next to you or your kids say, you sound like you're choking all the time at night, you probably have sleep apnea. So see your healthcare provider, get tested, find out if you've got it. Sleep apnea causes a plethora of health-based problems. Good night's sleep is just as important as a good diet and really getting a good amount of exercise each day. And that exercise doesn't have to be at the gym. It can be increasing your steps, walking up and down steps. And if you have problems like hips or knees or whatever, go swimming. Swimming's a wonderful exercise. Get out there. You got shoulder problems, swim, make those joints move. You will definitely rust out long before you wear out. So keep active if you want a long, healthy, high quality life. Now, with that, let's talk about poop. Everybody's got stool, and if you don't, you're really in trouble. So what you want to do is have nice regular bowel movements, and if you're eating a healthy diet with plenty of fiber, that shouldn't be a problem. But sometimes your normal colored stool, which is brown and should be a medium to dark brown, that means things are good. But if you ever see your stool get really dark, like tar looking or black, you've got to be careful. That means you can be bleeding from your upper GI, like ulcers, bleeding ulcers. You need to see your healthcare provider right away. It's a situation that can turn very serious. And so what you want to do now, if you're taking something like Pepto-Bismol, you got to be careful, because that will cause your stool to become black, and that's a kind of a false positive. So tell your healthcare provider if you're taking any medications, so that they'll know if that's one of the side effects. Now, if it's red, nothing like seeing red stool, but that indicates bleeding in your lower intestinal tract, like your colon. Can be a polyp, could be pre-tumor, could be a nodule, could be a lot of things, could be a hemorrhoid. But you don't want to wait around and find out later on. If you see red stool, and some people on blood thinners have trouble controlling things like warfarin, and so the blood gets too thin and they'll get blood in their stool. You want to see your healthcare provider right away to make sure you don't have serious problems. Green stool or blue poop, my favorite. Those come from a lot of green vegetables that you haven't been used to eating, or, and this has happened to me before, food coloring. If you eat Kentucky Blue cupcake icing, you'll find out that you have fluorescent green or blue poop sometimes. Just remember, it's harmless. You ate food coloring, but keep track of that. Otherwise, you need to see your healthcare provider because you want to make sure that it's not a problem with the food going through the intestines too rapidly. Yellow, start getting a yellow tint, not good. That means that you probably got an issue with your, like cirrhosis or hepatitis. It's usually a liver issue, and you need to get that checked out right away with your healthcare provider. And last of all, clay color, which is a really common, and that's if you're having issues with your bile ducts or you get too much fat and you're not used to it, you can turn your stool clay color. And stool should always be medium consistency, not rock hard. That means you're dehydrated, or way too soft like diarrhea or runny. That means you have an issue. So you want to look at those things and see and talk to your healthcare provider. If you get healthcare information, go to reliable sources like this podcast, or look at the American Medical Association or Health WebD or a great university that has a medical school, and look at their websites, or a clinic like the Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic. Those kind of things will give you accurate health information. There is a lot of really bad information out there on health. Now, last but not least, I want to tell you a little bit. I do a lot of forensic work. I've done a lot of criminal and civil cases as an expert witness on medical and biomedical matters as a pathologist and toxicologist. And, everyone talks about how complex school and mass shootings are. And it really has an interesting demographic. We do something called weight of evidence, where you look at all the different criteria and facts and try to put pieces of the puzzle together. Now, no one knows at this point why we have had this terrible uptake in mass shootings. Guns have been around a long time. Take away guns, people will start stabbing one another like they do in Europe and different places at times, or they're going to start using explosives because there's a root problem you need to solve. And we know that a certain amount of that is a mental health issue. But how do we have such intense issues now that we didn't have just 15 or 20 years ago? And I think a lot of that lies in an interesting fact. And this is a hypothesis, not proven yet, but I think it's one of the factors that goes into it. We have a very isolated society. There's a lot of articles these days about isolation. COVID was bad for separating people. People have become social media friends, but not real friends. You need to get out. You need to get into a group. I don't care if it's a golf league, a bowling league. I don't care if it's a Sudoku league. I don't care what it is, but you need to get out and have people. We have like small church groups. You can do that, or a baseball team, softball, basketball, volleyball, whatever. It doesn't have to be sports. It can be anything. We have an older group of women that come to a restaurant near us on a regular basis, and they have a big bridge tournament, and they keep in contact with one another. You need to keep yourself from being physically and mentally, emotionally separated and isolated from other people. You need contact. You need to be able to vent. You need to be able to talk to people. You need to hear outside perspectives. But another thing I think that's really an issue is if you look in the last 30 years, the increase in stimulants that are used to treat children that have ADHD, things like Adderall, Ritalin, and that they have skyrocketed. The prescriptions have increased 20-fold in 30 plus years. And what we've done is we've given a stimulant that changes the brain chemistry. Now, a lot of these kids, we talk about substance abuse as being an issue in school shootings. If you look at the demographic, young white males, a lot of them have spent a lot of time, and those can be great for helping ADHD at a very small, short time in their life. I'm ADHD, so I know what I'm talking about there. But I was pre-Adderall, pre-Ritalin. And so what you've got is people will learn the coping skills, and you may have to get them over a hump or something, but you don't need to drug these poor kids until they end up having brain chemistry differences that I think are part of the problem. The other part of the problem is substance abuse by pregnant mothers when they've had opioid uses exploded over those same 30 years. And I think we're seeing the results of children that are born with addict mothers. And I think that is a piece of that puzzle that we need to seriously consider. I'm not saying that's the cause. I'm saying that's part of a complex problem. And we have to make progress on that. With that, I'm going to say for today, have a great day, be healthy, and let's do Frank Talk with Dr. Frank. Have a good day.
Remember, send your comments and questions to Dr. Frank at mdswpod@gmail.com.